Hey, everybody, I want to welcome you to another episode of The Other Side of the Story, where we're bringing to you, I know you're being encouraged by hopefully watching these every week, listening to these people's stories of dedication, commitment, what they overcome to get to where they are now. We want to inspire you, motivate you, and challenge you for what we're doing. And today, I promise you, this story is going to really help you. We got Jonah Burnett with us, who has been all over the world, literally, was raised in California, was a Marine, went to 3 combat duties, is working for Northrop Grumman now, has a master's degree from University of Alabama. But his story is amazing of all that he's experienced, things he's overcome, and what he has learned about life is going to help your life. So, Jonah, thank you for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm ready to talk to you. Happy for the opportunity. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, man. So now, I guess like everybody's story always begins back up, maybe where you were raised, what you learned. But now you were raised in California.
Yes, sir.
So, and tell us about that. What happened in your life being raised in
Yes,
California?
yeah. So my story did start back in there, mid '80s guy,
Okay.
from Southern California, and it started off for me right out the gate. Felt like adversity. Right,
Mm-hmm.
I went into it. I was born 6 months premature. Um, the note that was passed on to me to my foster parents was, keep him comfortable. All babies deserve some love. This is in August of '85, and they said this baby won't make it till December. So the best y'all can do is just keep them happy, show them love. We know that y'all are Christians, and that's really what we want you to do is, show them some love and keep them comfortable, and then, when he passes on, you'll have another child at your doorstep.
So you were born uh, to your, of course, to your mom gave birth to, but she immediately put you immediately gave you up after birth.
Right. So at the time being, my mother, she struggled with drugs and alcohol at
Okay.
that time, and unfortunately, she wasn't able to take care of me at that time being. So I got placed in the foster care
Okay.
system,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I went to a very specific home because who would eventually be my adoptive mother was a skilled nurse who was trained in um, premature babies
Mm-hmm.
and the handling of babies that are sick or detoxing from given substances. So that's why I got placed in that house.
So it really was a miracle that you're here
100%.
today.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you were adopted,
Yes, sir.
and give us that story because this is where your story begins to really be amazing to me.
So here's the story is it gets real interesting from there because at the time, like I said, we're in the mid '80s. Just before the Rodney King riots take off. So Los Angeles was a very segregated place at the time.
Hmm.
That time being, it was mostly just white and black people and some Hispanics in the area. But what was interesting to my story is that the two people that stepped up to bat and said God's calling on their life was to adopt me. They both were white,
Okay.
and so that ended up being, um, my biggest blessing in my life. But that would start, the road of controversy for us because here I was, and we were as a family growing up in Los Angeles, and we had the Pink of the King riots. There was a lot of blame that went around.
Hmm.
White people were being judged, you know, black people being judged, and
Hmm.
and here my family stepped up to do the right thing and raise me, and then they found themselves being persecuted for taking a black child out of a home when they were just following the call of God, and that was
Yeah.
what got put on their lives, and for me it felt troubling growing up because I was just a kid trying to grow up, and I wasn't quite black enough because I had white parents, so I didn't fit into any given crowd, I guess you could say.
Tell us because again, that is an amazing part of your journey of uh, white parents adopting a black child in the middle of the Rodney King riots in L.A., the racism, like you just said. So, what were some of the things that, as you were growing up in this environment, what were some of the things that you had to overcome, were challenging to you, that you learned about people or your situation?
I guess right out the gate, you learned I had this longing to belong and to become. And
Hmm.
like I said in there, my parents were Christians, and raised me up in the Word, but I still found myself trying to find my own journey. There were times where there were certain things that I knew about, because I was being raised in a different culture,
Hmm.
so I didn't quote unquote know how to be black enough or white enough. And there were some times like I found myself in the middle of something because I love basketball. I love basketball since Word One,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember the kids poking fun at me because I showed up to play basketball one day in a Dale Earnhardt T-shirt, and uh and they was laughing at me, and then I
Yeah.
got picked up, and I could hoop, so I did drop a 20 piece on them, but I was doing it in my Dale Earnhardt attire, and they didn't understand what that was. So
Right.
there was
Right.
a cultural differences there.
Definitely
Hmm.
cultural differences.
Yeah.
So, was the struggle? I mean, again, what you're saying is what a lot of people do face about their identity if they were adopted, not knowing their true parents or whatever the situation might have been.
Yeah.
But in your case, we're talking two different ethnicities.
Right.
So some of that was you trying to fit in. How'd that make you feel?
It just if I'm honest, I spent a whole life chasing who I was to my core because there were times when from a just a social setting where I wanted to be black enough to measure up.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times from another side I said, well, you know, my parents are white, and I know white people aren't scary to me, and they are good to me. And I don't know why everyone's judging them for any given type of reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know where that, mix was. So I found myself longing for that. I would cling to either try and learn more black things to be black enough, or try to be more white things to do this here, and it created a pressure chamber for me. I would go through school, and then I found myself trying to measure up just in what life had presented to me. I felt like I needed to measure up because my parents had to adopt me,
Mm-hmm.
and that cost them everything. They were foster parents who were good at what they did, but part of the stipulations of my adoption, they said, you are no longer allowed to be foster parents because this child is going to need everything that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these kids that you have raised and been successful at, and all the kids that you got to leave all of them for the one.
Wow.
And that was just something that just really stuck to me. And I felt like I always needed to do my best and prove my worth and show me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, a lot of adopted kids go through the fact of you go through your whole life wondering why.
Mm-hmm.
Why did my mom leave me?
Yeah.
What was the case? And I'm a little guy, so I didn't understand what drug addiction was. I didn't understand all this. It just started to look like, well, they don't look the same as I
Mm-hmm.
do. And so there's an identity thing that you chase. And then as I started to form up and grow up from there, even in my, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old, where you get a little bit more cognitive ability, I started wondering, I said, how come my mom never came back and looked for me?
Right.
And what did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Was I an accident, or maybe that was the case, and maybe I was just a product of a crazy night. And so you walk through life, and for me, I started thinking that like maybe I was an accident,
Mm-hmm.
and just then so I would just kind of shift in that energy of I want to be great enough for everyone to accept me, and then sometimes I would lean on that and I just say I was an accident. So what am I trying for?
So you were struggling with value,
Yes, sir.
and you were struggling with identity.
Right.
I know people again are getting a lot of healing from this. I believe will happen before this is over. Because regardless of our situation, that is a big thing. We're all looking to be who are we,
Yeah.
and that was one of your challenges, trying to find out who you are.
Right.
I feel like everybody faces peer pressure, don't they?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because you were trying to fit in.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us what happened when you got into high school.
So, like you said, there was peer pressure, and even there's nothing changes in the game but the names, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I see what kids are going through here in school, and my version of pressure was like different there too,
Mm-hmm.
but mine still was that root was identity.
Okay.
So I got into high school, and I just happened to be I was a good athlete, right? Um, I played 4 sports. I lettered in all 4. My focus and everything was in basketball though,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my meal ticket out. And I thought basketball will be able to give me a scholarship somewhere, completely away from where I'm raised,
All right.
and I can just start a new journey with me. And I did well in basketball and got some looks and got some talks going on. In my junior year is when I started to flourish, and then my senior year, um, I had some character issues. I thought it was all about me and not about the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so focused on my way out of high school and running from my identity crisis and everything like that, that I was so focused on me that I forgot to be a team player.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those things started to manifest later in my high school years, and a lot of those college coaches walked away because they felt I had character issues, that I was so focused on me and what I had to do that I wasn't a team player and I wouldn't be a good fit for a lot of these collegiate programs
Yeah.
and the culture they had.
That's a powerful principle. Want to kind of elaborate real quick on is character, and you maybe struggling with the identity of who you are. Do you feel like there was just some, you know, hidden? Was it anger? Or do you feel like was it things that maybe were manifesting that way? Because people, again, not knowing who they are,
Right.
and a lot of people think talent overrides character, but it's really the opposite, isn't it?
It is, and for me, there was anger, there was confusion,
Okay.
I was so focused on being the best
Mm-hmm.
player that I wasn't the best teammate.
Okay.
And as I started to drill into that, I went to school and I made the grades, because you got to make grades to be on the team. But I struggled in my identity as a whole with knowing like I didn't feel like I was smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it took me longer to learn things than it took others to learn. And then it got easy to be comfortable to just be a jock,
Mm-hmm.
be a, you can just make the grades that you can make, and as long as you out there playing, you never have to push yourself on the academic side.
Right.
So I kind of ran from that in high school, and that was ultimately why I didn't go off to college, because I was worried about that and how
Okay.
I perform as an academic student. So I kind of hid from college for quite a while.
So so your life started transitioning.
Yeah.
Um, so you went into the Marines, right, out of
Yes,
high school.
I did.
So tell us about what you learned as being a Marine, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
What you learned in being a Marine, and then you grew in that role as a Marine,
Yeah.
and you went into 3 combat tours. So talk about your growing up as a man, maturing, just things that you learned from, again, looking for your identity.
Okay. Well, my story for joining the Marines, I had a Marine recruiter that would come to high school,
Mm-hmm.
and he would hawk us every single week, all the athletes for sure, because he knew we'd pass the physical
Yeah.
portion. So he'd show up and say, anyone want to join the Marines? And I used to laugh at my friends that were already, on their way. And I said, y'all are crazy. You gonna mess around and go and get you some business ain't got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Be out there in a war and all this. And he said, you don't want to join the Marines? I said, I don't need to join the Marines. I said, do you know who I am? So, my ego was,
Yeah.
enormous at the time. And he said, no, I don't know who you are. And I said, I don't need your Marines and no military. I'm going on a full ride. I'll be out of here in no time. So he said, okay. Well, he said, if it doesn't work out,
Mm-hmm.
you can always feel free to contact me. I said, that's crazy. I ain't contacting you. So he put me up with a challenge. He said they had their little pull-up bar, that they bring out with
Yes.
them. He said, I'll tell you this much. If you do more pull-ups than me, he said, I'll never talk to you again. You have my word. I'll leave you alone. I said, you serious? Because he would hawk me. I said every time
Yeah.
we got to school. So we got up there. I ended up long the story a bit. I did more pull-ups than him, and he kept his word. He didn't even look my direction. But fast forward to senior year, when all my scholarships washed up and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have anything going on, I went to that door to that office and I said, "Hey, I'm interested in joining the Marines." He said, "No, you're a big time athlete. I want to touch you.
Yeah.
Go on and live your athlete thing." I said, "Well, things changed." I said, "This is it." I said, "This was a Tuesday." I said, "If you could have me ship out by Friday," I said, "I got the grades, I got all the athletics to go. If I ship on Friday, I'll leave. I'll join the Marines."
So you you went to the Marines. I guess that showed again your transition of having some humility,
Sure.
right? Humility, humble yourself a little bit.
Yeah,
You went there and you were ready to join on a Tuesday and leave on a Friday.
that's
What do
right.
you feel like? Where was that coming from?
Well, it's there was a lot of, number one, it was just me being 18 years old
Yeah.
and not knowing up from down and just making a rash decision without thinking it out. And then for me, it was the most comfortable spot to go. I said, they sent me the brochure, they put the pamphlet in front. I said, all you got to do is work out, have fun, and see the world.
Yeah.
And I said, that's everything I'm into right now.
Yeah.
I'll go on and run with those boys, and I'll be in good shape. And I remember my dad asked me, at the time being, my recruiter was in my house, and there were 7 other Marine recruiters because they were going to a function
Mm-hmm.
where we were. And so my dad shows up from work, and there's 7 Marines in dress blues in my living room. And my dad, who was a Navy veteran, served in Vietnam.
Okay.
And he did 3 combat tours.
Yeah.
And he looked in there and he said, "Do you know what you're getting yourself into?" I said, yeah, Dad, I read the whole brochure front to back twice.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. He said, okay. And he let me at 18 years old
Right.
sign up for myself and go off to boot camp, and I learned within an hour and a half of being there. I had no idea
Mm-hmm.
what I got myself into.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people make decisions. You're telling us you made this decision. Though it turned out great, we'll get to that in a second. But make decisions maybe to escape something, maybe to
Right.
run from something.
Right. And
Yeah.
that was the key. There was just it was running from that.
Okay.
That was I pushed the easy button. I didn't address my issues of identity crisis and really look through on how I process through emotions and information. It was just easier. Like in high school, it's always easier to go out and play sports and just tune
Yeah.
the rest of it out. And the Marine Corps, at first, it provided that outlet. I thought, which I was going to be able to run from my fears and my problems. And like I said, when I got down there, that's character class 101, and they
Yeah.
put you through the ringer. And I had a senior drill instructor that adjusted my attitude quickly.
So what did you start learning about yourself? I think it's important we learn about ourselves. What did you learn about yourself as you began your Marine career?
Well, you know what, the Marine career, it being in boot camp forced me into being a team player
Okay.
because everybody looks the same, everybody dresses the same,
Mm-hmm.
and that was your first indoctrination to being a team player. It's forced upon you.
Yeah.
And then as it's forced upon you and you're working in that element of you're being told every movement and every single thing to do, heck, you're being told what foot to put down, when to put it down
Mm-hmm.
as you march. And I understood that was the basis of drill, direct obedience to orders. So I went in there and I was forced to be a team player right from word one. And I gravitated to it and I loved it because the team player filled a void of identity.
Okay.
Right down there, everybody was from different families and everybody was different colors.
Yeah.
But hey, we were united under the green, and so I felt like I belonged finally.
Mm-hmm.
And I took refuge in that of knowing, okay, I'm in a whole pool of people where nobody knows where anybody came from, and that was my restart that I was seeking at the time.
That's good. Started feeling the void of your life.
Right.
I'll say this, and I've said this before, Jonah, and I really believe this. I was in the Air Force. I think every person would be great in America if every person was required
Very much
to
so.
do at least 1 year of military, because you're right. When you go in, it teaches you in the sense of it doesn't matter about skin color,
Right.
doesn't matter where you come from. You're now together, and you begin to grow like that, and you begin to see people for who they are. I think it's just such an important lesson. I want to interject that for a
Right.
second. So you went out to combat in 3 different tours. What would that do in you when you went to combat? Because a lot of people don't understand.
You know, I think before you go and deploy into a combat zone, you think of life from one lens.
Okay.
You think of, hey, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do a job, and then I'm going to rotate back to the States. I'm going to ride off into the sunset. And
Mm-hmm.
but the reality of it is you're never changed. You're never the same.
Okay.
Right? You go in there and you're forever changed. That's from the biggest of things where looking at it is you may lose somebody, you may lose friends, you may lose colleagues, people that you know, and then you lose time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You lose those moments of, for me, like, I had a young son in my in my second deployment, and I lost so much time in there. And then lastly, like, you lose um your comfort, right? Because when you go to some of these places that are in shambles, you understand the how ugly the world can get.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you gravitate to how good we have it here in the United States, but you're still looking at what people are capable of when they get pushed to that brink or ordered to that brink.
Yeah.
And it makes you really look at life through a lens of, now you're kind of hyper aware of things, and now there's sometimes where you can find yourself not being able to unwind and relax the same,
Mm-hmm.
because you have some of these traumas and some of these thoughts and visions in your head that will manifest, and you do wonder, like, okay, what am I always looking over my shoulder, or is that always a piece of
Right.
me? Is that part of my identity going forward?
Yeah. So when you got done on your third, when you came back home, And, no doubt we can't even relate. People that have not been in war can't even relate. They have never been in a war,
Mhm.
but it changed you.
Yeah,
It changed you. And so you become a drill instructor.
yeah.
So how long was you in that role?
So I was down in that role for about 2 years,
Okay.
and that my the reason I raised my hand for that was to give back. Like I said, I had a senior drill instructor when I went to boot camp, and that was the first time I'd ever had somebody look through me and see me.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked up to me and he said, "You're either gonna fix your attitude problem or I'm gonna fix it for you." And he said, "I don't care what they told you. If you got an issue, we're gonna close this door, and you won't have an issue when we're done."
Yeah.
And there was something about that where it never came to that, but I understand that he pushed me in the level of cement all your ego, all your pride, and buy into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that was when it shifted. When I learned how to be a team player
Okay.
and it be more important about somebody else, that's what made me make the move. And I said I wanted to raise my hand and I wanted to go down there. And I knew also what you're signing up for when you raise your hand to be a Marine. That's one thing,
Yeah.
but you raise your hand to be a Marine drill instructor, that's the top 10% of the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to push you to the max. That is the most my body is physically hurt. That is the most, mental struggle. Like when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about pushing through walls and things like that, that school, I doubted myself every single day.
Yeah.
And it was a 3-month school. And I thought I've really got myself into something here,
Yeah.
even more so than when I listened to Marines.
Well, I think again, I want to say this because the value of what you're saying is so important to all of us that's listening and watching this. Is that whatever we go through, and your situation, of course, was I feel like it was the racism,
Right,
it was dealing with the childhood things of being adopted by interracial parents,
right,
it was the high school thing, it was the identity thing. Now you're in the Marines, now it's giving back. So the value is we ought to give back of what we've already been through.
right,
And that's what you started doing.
right.
And so you did it for 3 years?
Yeah, so down there just about 3 years, and that was kind of how I wrapped my career up from there. But
Yeah.
as I even started to put a bow on that, like you said there, the identity thing and where
Mm-hmm.
you find your identity is critical because I found myself transitioning from the Marine Corps, and I thought to myself after 10 years of service,
Yeah.
if I'm not a Marine and I'm not putting that camouflage uniform on every day, who am I?
That's so good, Jonah, because again, we'll get to that at the end of your story in a minute. But it's so good for people to hear that because we do wrap our identity by what we do.
Right,
Okay.
right,
So now you're not a Marine.
yeah,
So you get that you're not a Marine. So, you know, you're still looking for your identity in that
right.
sense. And what happens next?
So I found myself going to the sheriff's department. I looked through the benefits and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
you know what it ended up being when I look back. Monday morning quarterbacking is that the sheriff's department was a safe place for me
Okay.
because I was able to put a uniform back on. Everybody was dressed the same. I was back behind a gun,
Yeah.
and I was chasing bad guys. And for all of my youth, that was my comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
was doing that and being that role. And my identity, like you said, was in what I did, not who I was.
Right.
And so I found myself. I went to Sheriff's Academy, joined that thing. That came natural because it was just working out, taking orders, and doing that thing. So went to Sheriff's Academy. Grace of God, my whole body was beat up after the time in the Marine Corps, but
Right.
I held together long enough. I graduated #1 from the Sheriff's Academy, and at that time, it rolled into I was able to give a graduation speech to our Sheriff's Academy and
Wow.
and a lot of the city officials and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And we did that graduation ceremony at a church. And unbeknownst to me, at the time I was giving my speech up there, um, who would be my wife was in the next room at choir rehearsal.
Isn't that amazing how you can be in a spot and not realize who's around you, but who is going to be with you as being, your wife, meeting your wife eventually. It's
Right,
just amazing. People don't understand sometimes the awareness, and we don't know,
right,
but yet it could be the person that we need in our life. It's crazy. It's
right,
good. That's good.
right.
Did you work for Homeland Security when you were a part of that thing, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So I love being in law enforcement. I
Yeah.
love what I did there. And I got approached by I guess you'd say like a recruiter type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got talked to about, hey, would you be interested in doing some support measures for Department of Homeland Security. And so I talked with my sergeant and said, hey, I'm really thinking about jumping on this gig
Mm-hmm.
and doing it full time. Um, and he said, okay. And the only problem with that part of the story was it was all me.
Yeah.
It was something that I found would be great. Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna love this. I'm gonna flourish. I'm gonna be, I'm high speed now.
Mm-hmm.
When I got into the midst of that, I didn't know that that would require. I had a 3 hour commute one way.
Wow.
3 hour
So
commute
you're
one.
driving 3 hours.
3 hour commute one way. And I drove it for the first month or so, and I said, I can't. I'm killing myself doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped on a train, and I would take the train in from all the way where I was out, all the way into downtown LA.
Mm-hmm.
And but when I made that decision, and it wasn't a prayer felt decision or anything like that,
Yeah.
it was completely out of order. I found myself, I lost more time at home, and I was missing moments with my family,
Mm-hmm.
although I was doing what I really love to do.
Yeah.
And that was that really would force my hand down the road to go in right order and say, God, what would you have me to do in this moment?
So you're a spiritual man.
Yes,
You're
sir.
a believer, Christian, and without seeking, I guess you felt like guidance from God or being led into something, you made your own decision.
Right.
Isn't that amazing that all of us that are watching this and listening to this, we've made decisions not based on what was probably best for us, but yet what we thought we wanted to do.
Right.
And you learn from that, right?
I did.
Yeah.
It was a humbling experience
Okay.
because as that would all shake out, I ended up the time on the road, took away from my family so much that I would, resign from that position.
Okay.
So I had some, for me that was my breaking point because I was I felt I was a successful Marine.
Mm-hmm.
I did really good work in the sheriff's department and then on with Department of Homeland Security. And at that moment, when I turned my resignation in, I had nothing coming in. I had nothing in my sights, nothing working on. So the only company that called back was Target, and I found myself at the after doing all of those things, high speed and leading men and doing all that. I was a night worker, and I was unloading semi trucks at Target.
All right, we got to stop. So you're saying, you was a soldier, Marine,
Yeah,
drill instructor, sheriff's department, homeland security, which are high level. No doubt you felt the value, and thank God you did, of helping people and giving back. How did it make you feel to be working at Target now? What did you struggle with in that?
So, of course, I struggled with.
Now, let me say, there's nothing wrong working at Target.
Not at all.
No, but I'm just saying, where you were to what happened.
Not at all.
Next, how did it make you feel, or what were you going through with that?
My initial feeling was pride.
Okay.
This is beneath
me.
me.
We all battle that. Good.
I should be doing this. I could be running this whole operation better than this.
Yeah.
And then when I settled in and was able to slow that thing down, I saw the importance. Although I didn't have the title, right, of that I thought was, preceded me, I had all the time and all the opportunities to be home and to, to be at the sports things and to be at practices and and I'd get to make dinner every night and we get to sit there and I get to find out about all their days because on the other side of things, when I was doing what I enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
and what I thought I was called and purposed for, I never, there was a time in a month span that, I'd go a whole week without seeing my kids.
Yeah.
And they lived in the same house because I would come home while they were in bed.
Right.
And I'd be leaving first thing in the morning before they got up again.
That's a powerful point again about value of who you are, not based on what you do.
Right.
But then at the same time, you were willing to humble yourself in that transition and put down your pride. Right. I think pride is the biggest thing we all fight when it comes to ego. You see yourself also now you're at Target, which is a great lesson for all of us, man.
Right.
Great lesson. Then what was really important, you were getting now to enjoy is your family.
Right.
So in that, you take another step because your story is amazing of transition and learning and growing.
Yeah.
So from that point, what happened?
So from there, again, I was faithful doing my thing at Target, and I said, you know what, God, like what's most important to me is my family, And if I got to do this, and if this is it from here, it's been a heck of a ride.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of accommodations and those things that I can look back and I felt like I made some impact in the world while I was here. But if this is it, like I'm gonna sit back on it. And what I got tugged at in my spirit was, as all that time I had home, I started doing homework with the kids again. And I told them, "Oh, you gotta give your best. You gotta push this thing through, and you gotta make a grade so you can go to
Mm-hmm.
college." And my son asked, "What school did you go to?" I said, I'm," and that was when I had to vocalize that. I said, "I'm working on it."
Yeah.
And again, he was early elementary at this time,
Mm-hmm.
but that was the first gut punch that I took that really asked me the question on, hey, what's standing between you and your family, and really saying, stepping up to the plate as a man and saying, hey, I'm providing my best. That requires you going to school, and you're gonna have to do that.
This is amazing. It came out of the mouth of a child.
It is.
That's good.
It is.
That's good. So
So
you go tell us about your education real quick.
yeah, so about the time I was there at Target, I got a call from Northrop, where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had worked for Northrop, and so did my brother.
Okay.
Both had retired from there, and it wasn't really anything that was on my radar, because I didn't really think I had it upstairs, to